Hello, I want to go through how to explain the difference in radius between various atoms and ions. And I would use the acronym SPAR. S stands for shells and shielding, P stands for protons, A stands for attraction, and R stands for repulsion. First of all, you talk about the number of shells and the shielding. Then you talk about the number of protons. Then you talk about the attraction between the positive protons and the negative valence electrons. And then, if the shells and the protons are the same, you talk about the repulsion between the valence electrons. That only occurs if you are discussing negative ions. Let's have a look at how that works. You will need to know the definition of shielding. Shielding is the repulsion of the valence electrons by the inner electrons. That is a definition that you need to have stuck in your brain. Okay? Which is bigger, sodium or chlorine? Well, sodium and chlorine both have 3 shells. So I've discussed the number of shells, and I've said not only are they the same, but I've said how many there are. So they have the same shielding, and I've defined the shielding. Shielding is the repulsion of valence electrons by the inner electrons. So I don't have a difference yet. So I talk about the protons. Chlorine has 17 protons, which is more than sodium with 11. So I've not only provided the details, I've pointed out that 17 is bigger than 11. So now I talk about the attraction. So the attraction of the positive protons for negative valence electrons is greater for chlorine. And so I answer the question, so sodium is bigger. Which is bigger, fluorine or chlorine? Shells and shielding. Chlorine has 3 shells, which is more than fluorine with 2. So chlorine has more shielding. Shielding is the repulsion of valence electrons by inner electrons. Chlorine has 17 protons, which is more than fluorine with 9. However, the number of shells is more important than the number of protons. Remember, we're talking about SPAR, and in SPAR, S comes before P. So the attraction of positive protons for negative valence electrons is greater for fluorine, so chlorine is bigger. Note in this slide and the one before, I didn't talk about repulsion because either the shells or the protons, the numbers of those was different. Which is bigger, chlorine or chloride 1- ion? I talk about the shells and the shielding first. Both chlorine and Cl- have 3 shells. So they have the same shielding. Shielding is the repulsion of valence electrons by inner electrons. Protons, both Cl and Cl- have 17 protons, so I don't have a difference. So the attraction of the positive protons for the negative valence electrons is the same. However, Cl- has 1 more valence electron than Cl. So Cl- has more electron-electron repulsion for valence electrons. So Cl- is bigger.